What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Thomas. This is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, brought to you by Spreaker.com. The number, who knows what number it is? One of the best podcast networks out there. Spreaker has provided me the opportunity to produce and create content for anyone that wants to listen. Created a Facebook page at Thomas Take Sports Podcast, and I have a Twitter account at ThomasTake92. You can check that out. I don't really go on Twitter a lot to post things, but I'm going to start. Really, I'm trying to get more followers, but I'm trying to get more likes on my Facebook page. And the Facebook page is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. That's really allowed me to advertise a lot more. I'm going to look into boosting my posts so they reach more people to make this podcast grow even more than it already has in the last calendar year. So the big storyline, Rex Ryan fired from the Buffalo Bills, and I want to give a brief 15-minute history lesson of the coaching carousel and what reasons that these 9 coaches have been fired or so. I talked about Rex Ryan, why he was fired. I want to talk to everyone about what led us here. Obviously, Terry Pegula wasn't a part of the team back then, but I feel like Terry has a good fingerprint on the fact that he knows what's going on with this franchise. Being a fan of this franchise, being a fan of this area, he knows what goes on. He knows what has gone on with this team. And obviously, it goes without saying that Rex Ryan was a huge name for the Buffalo Bills, a huge name hire for the Buffalo Bills. Probably the biggest name head coach that they have hired since Chuck Knox way, way back. And Marv Levy does not get thrown into that mix because Marv Levy was not a big name at all. Marv Levy was practically a mediocre nobody, spending time in Montreal, spending time in the CFL, and spending time with the Kansas City Chiefs for a brief period of time. And that is a fact. Marv Levy was a commentator, and Bill Polian brought him on to be the head coach, and most of the media at the time thought that it was a huge grasping at straws type move, and it led to the greatest run in the history of the team. So it's tough with the exception, of the championships that they actually won with Lou Saban and the American Football League, I will say. Those were their actual championships then of an actual football league where they didn't win the actual championship, the Super Bowl with Marv Levy, you could say. That's, but the greatest run that the team went on, obviously the 4 straight Super Bowls. So the one that's, revered in history. So who's to say that they can't hire somebody that might be that guy, that underrated guy that could come in and really blow the lid off this thing and change the culture of this team? And that's talked about so many times, the culture of this team. Doug Marrone was supposed to be the guy to change the culture of this team. It was even posted on the walls at One Bills Drive, posted in the field house at One Bills Drive. And that didn't happen. He quit on the players. And then Rex Ryan comes in with all the boisterous, bombastic personality that he has and shows real, true excitement for wanting to coach this team. And he's fired in 2 years. So what direction do they go in next? I don't know. But Marv Levy was here for quite some time. He was here from 1986 to 1997. And after that, they replaced Marv Levy with Wade Phillips, who was the defensive coordinator at the time for the Buffalo Bills. He was promoted from within, and Wade Phillips is probably the last really great head coach that the Buffalo Bills have had, and most people don't really know this, especially in my generation, but I've studied the Buffalo Bills history from, all the way, since day one, really. And Wade Phillips was fired due in large part to the fact that he wanted to keep Bruce DeHaven the special teams coordinator on. And Ralph Wilson wanted him fired, probably due in large part to the Music City Miracle, but that was a fluke play that is a part of the game. It's a part of football. Definitely part of football history. And Wade Phillips said, we were a winning team. I think Wade Phillips got to coach the team 1 year after that. I could be wrong. But he wanted Bruce DeHaven to stay, and Ralph Wilson did not. So Ralph Wilson then fired Bruce DeHaven, and he fired Wade Phillips. The next guy they brought in at that point was the defensive guru of the Titans, Greg Williams. And Greg Williams came with a lot of notoriety, big name coordinator coming in his first head coaching stint. And Tom Donahoe was named the president of Pro Football Operations. The stunning move that basically handed Ralph Wilson's reins to Tom Donahoe to run the day in and day out operations of the team. And at that point, At that point, Tom Donahoe knew that he needed to go after a quarterback, and the biggest name available was Drew Bledsoe. That was in 2002. Rob Johnson had a shattered collarbone. Obviously, Doug Flutie was gone. They made that decision. Ownership made that decision to move on from him. He went to San Diego to help tutor eventually future Hall of Famer Drew Brees. And Drew Bledsoe comes in. He lets it rip his first season, goes to the Pro Bowl. The Bills do okay. Then they do really bad the next year. I think they went 5-11. Greg Williams was here for 3 years. So I think they went 8-8, 5-11, 6-10, something like that. And then Mike Mularkey was named the head coach. Mike Mularkey coached here for 2 years, and Mike Mularkey quit. Good buddy of mine, Dan Schalk, told me that one of the reasons why Mike Mularkey quit wasn't due in large part to the fact that his kids were being bullied in Buffalo because of the way the team was performing. I don't know if that's true. I don't even think Dan knows if that's true. But that's what he told me. I've heard that from a few other places. And that's pretty disturbing that that would happen. And that's why Mike Mularkey left. Marv Levy was named the GM. And shortly after Marv Levy was named the GM, Mike Mularkey quit. And obviously there's a lot in between here. I'm talking about the head coaching changes. There's GM changes as well. So, that's mixed in there too. You can look that up for yourself. But I'm talking about the coaching carousel itself and what led these coaches to be fired. Wade Phillips because he wanted to keep Bruce DeHaven. Greg Williams because he was mediocre and he was practically insane. Mike Mularkey because he quit because his kids were being bullied and he didn't agree with the fact that Marv Levy, a former head coach, was going to be the GM of the Buffalo Bills, supplying him with the players that he needed to win. After that, Marv Levy went out and got Dick Duran. Dick Duran is very similar to Marv Levy in a lot of ways. He's not as much of a motivator, but he's a X's and O's guy, a smart guy, a former player. But it's safe to say that he did not translate. He was practically lifeless for a fan base that needed a coach with life. And that went crashing and burned. Came crashing down. After that was Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey was basically a offensive success, helping C.J. Spiller reach 1,300 yards in a season, which is obviously the best season of his career, and lets Ryan Fitzpatrick become the starting quarterback of the team. And they moved the ball pretty well with Fitzpatrick, Stevie Johnson, C.J. Spiller, but their defense was terrible. They let Seattle hang up 50-some points on them in Toronto. That was the beginning of the end for Chan. Chan was fired. Just a bunch of just hodgepodge moves. And then they bring in Doug Marrone. And Doug Marrone is supposed to change the culture of this team. He's here for 2 years. He quits. Then they hire Rex Ryan, a guy that's supposed to excite the fan base. And Rex Ryan gets fired in 2 years. It is astounding, the carousel that the Bills have had at the head coaching position. And it's more astounding that they have had two coaches, one in 2004 and another in 2014, 2 coaches within 10 years quit, choose to be offensive coordinators or quarterbacks coaches or wide receivers coaches or offensive lines coaches or assistant head coaches rather than being the head coach of a National Football League franchise, one that's been in existence since 1959. That just shows the dysfunction of this franchise. And that's in large part of the reason why there's people that live in Buffalo that are fans of other teams. They're fans of the Eagles. They're fans of the Patriots. They're fans of the Colts. They're fans of the Broncos. Fans of the Steelers. They're fans of the Browns. I know Browns fans that live in Buffalo. And you can say what you want about the Browns. They're easy to make fun of. But they are in a very good place right now. They have Hugh Jackson as their head coach, who, on a lot of sources on my end, was reportedly the second man in waiting to be the head coach for the Bills, second in the search to Rex Ryan. It came down to Rex Ryan and Hugh Jackson. And Hugh Jackson is a good coach. There's very, very much a lot of evidence of that with what he did with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. His run in Oakland was even cut short way too soon. And he inherits a team with a terrible situation. They have over half their roster is under 3 years of NFL experience in Cleveland. They drafted Johnny Manziel. He's cut within 2 years. So they have no quarterback. He brings in RG3. RG3 gets hurt. Josh McCown gets hurt. He's got Cody Kessler, a guy that he was high on in the draft. And they traded that pick, the second pick, to... they traded the second pick to Philly so Philly could get Carson Wentz, and in return they got a lot of picks for that pick. So they have plenty of draft choices. 2 in the top 10 overall picks. 2 of the top 10 overall picks in the 2017 draft will be owned by the Cleveland Browns. That is huge in a draft class that features Leonard Fournette and Jabril Peppers and guys that are great players. I'm very interested to see what they do. And I would rather be them. I kind of was a harsh critic towards Jerry Sullivan for saying that, but based on their draft picks and what they have, I do understand that. I would rather be them. But in the face of trying to write some positivity for the Buffalo Bills fan base at that point in time, I disagree with what Jerry Sullivan wrote there. And I think he's very negative. And, we don't really need that. We don't want to be sold false hope. But as of right now, we want to hear some sort of positivity. Right now, there's hardly any to muster. And even if they wanted to sell positivity or false hope, I don't think they could, not to me. But there's plenty of other instances where things are a good decision, and Jerry Sullivan writes something really negative about it. Like LaShawn McCoy talking about Chip Kelly. LaShawn McCoy can talk about whatever the hell he wants to talk about. If he wants to talk about Chip Kelly, that's fine. I don't care. He can do whatever he wants. He's a grown man. Who are we to say what he can and can't talk about? Just little silly things like that are annoying as a Buffalo Bills fan and as a journalist hopeful to see guys like that in this community write negative stuff constantly. And it gets old after a while. As I said, I don't know what's next for the Bills in their head coaching search. I know you guys probably want some sort of an answer from me. I don't have one. I really don't. I don't know who they should hire. I have no idea who they should hire. Tom Coughlin is the name that's been thrown out there. He has obviously 2 Super Bowl trophies that say he's legit, but he's also in his 70s, and I don't know what energy he has left. What does he really have to prove? Is he a guy that has the energy to rip up the Buffalo Bills? I don't know. I really don't. Frank Reich is a guy I really like, but does Frank Reich want to be the guy responsible for changing the culture of this team? I don't know. Rex wanted to be here. They just fired a guy that wanted to be here. So, in that regard, I have no idea who is next, the next head coach for the Buffalo Bills. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.